I'm not very religious, but I think this is a great story. You probably heard it. A kid was born in Bethlehem, and this was people were aware of that in long distance away in Persia, some kings or queens, and they wanted to go there to give some gifts, gold and myrrh and things like that. And they had a long way to travel there. It is like 2,000 kilometers. So how do you know how to get there? Well, you ask a friend. So they asked Google. And from Google, they got all these instructions detailed. It was like start in Persia, then go 10 meters straight ahead, and then you see a blue house, then you turn right, and then 20 kilometers in that direction, and then maybe you see a mill, but don't mind, go another 10 kilometers and things like that. Then there's a roundabout, be careful and so. But there was one problem. In the last one, there was a disclaimer saying, these directions are for planning purposes only. You may find construction projects, traffic, etc. You must obey all signs or notices regarding your route. So, oh no, this is changed requirements. It might be that you have those, they got these instructions, but maybe they have to change it further on. So what will happen if they work like 1,000 kilometers, they're half through, and there's a roadblock. They have to change this, and they don't know how. So they didn't use this. Instead, actually, as you probably know, they have figured out that there was a star, a giant star. It wasn't really in Bethlehem, but if they just move towards this star, they will get to Bethlehem. So if there was a roadblock and they walked around it, they could still navigate by looking at that star. So this is one way to make a plan. Another way is this reductionism. Maybe you've been to sprint planning, where the product owner comes in and says, hey, my manager said that we need to work with these two epics. They're called 2356 and 2357, these epics. And I have broken these epics down into each of them into 6 features. These are the thin line boxes. And each of these features I broke down into 9 stories. These are the balloons. And then we have 3 types of stories. We have blue stories, green stories, and red stories. And you know, Alice, you're an expert in blue stories, so you will do the blue stories. And Bob, you're an expert in the blue stories, so you will do the blue stories. And Cecilia, you're an expert in the red stories, you will do the red stories. And if you just put all your effort in there, in the end, everything will sum up to these 2 epics. Don't mind what the other people are doing. And this would be great if we worked with manufacturing. But in development, in product development, software development, there's one problem. That's that humans are not really machines. Some organizations tell their employees that you are a machine. You're actually a machine. They usually have languages where they talk about people as resources. They even have a department called human resources. And they use all kind of machine metaphors, like a group of people like this. You are a train. You're not a group of people. You're not humans. You're a machine. A release train. But the problem is that sorry, what was that? It was the one. The problem is that humans doesn't behave really like machines. First, they're not really one person, Alice and Bob. They're not really the same person. I mean, if you have an HP printer and it's broken and you replace it with another HP printer, it will do exactly the same job. But if you replace Alice with Bob, you will get some pros and cons. It will not be the same thing. Another thing is that humans have intelligence, so they can learn along the way. Things they didn't know from the beginning will be discovered while they start working with something. A printer knows everything at the beginning that it can do for its lifetime. It will never learn anything. at least not in my experience. So if you look at those two different ways of planning, the guiding star and the reductionism, you get two kind of teams, the business driven and the value driven. So, but it can be hard. It might be hard to recognize these two kind of teams. But one way to do it is if you have a sprint planning or a daily scrum, and in the end, the product owner or some manager says, "Hey, does everybody have something to do now?" Then you're probably in a business driven. The most important thing is that you have your red balloons, you have your blue balloons, and you have your green balloons. And put all your effort in this, and it will be something big in the end. If you're in a value-driven team, this manager or product owner might say, does everybody know what is most important right now? Does everybody know what's most important right now? No matter if you know exactly what to do, you know what's most important. What is the goal? What is our guiding star? If you don't know how you can contribute to that, talk to someone else in the team. Ask that person, can I help you? Because we have one goal. That's the value-driven team. This is an exercise that I didn't create it. It's my friend David who created it. Maybe you've seen it. But I run it once, and I run it several times. But once I run it, the idea is that you have two teams. Maybe they are in Agile training or something like that. And you say to these teams, you should draw a beautiful summer meadow. But what they don't know is that they get different instructions of how to do that. So the first team, gets a list which says beautiful summer meadow, which contains 10 blue flowers with 5 petals each, 5 blue flowers, 6 petals each, 13 red flowers with 6 petals each, 2 black spots, 2 birds to reside in the upper left corner, 3 birds in the middle, etc. And they draw something like this. So this is true. This is not something I created. And the other team got the instruction like, draw a beautiful summer meadow, a beautiful summer meadow where we can have a picnic with family and friends. It should be the sunniest day of the summer and things like that. So do you see the difference? This would be great if we were running a shoe factory or some kind of factory. All things are there. But if we're creating some kind of experience, a beautiful summer meadow for a picnic, then I think this one would be better. And this one is clearly goal-oriented, and this is more reductionistic. Do exactly this. Draw these things in that corner. Doesn't matter how you do it. And there's something about when we create our decisions. Maybe you've seen this before about the last responsible movement. If you look at the green arrow first, it's about the cost of deciding. So you can see this as, for example, a sprint. Starts there and ends there. If you make all decisions in the beginning, they might be wrong because you learn along the way. So the cost is very high. If you decide exactly what to put in the sprint backlog, exactly what design you will have. The longer you wait, the cost of the decision is lower. On the other hand, there's a cost of deferring, the blue arrow. If we wait too long, we will miss opportunities. We need to decide at some place what to do. What is our guiding star? And there might be some optimum there in the middle somewhere. But you can think of it like this. If you look at the diamond at the top, maybe you've seen that before. It says diverge, emerge, converge. So you can think of it like a sprint. In the beginning, you have some rough idea what to do, and then you think we could either do it this way and that way, but we don't know exactly, and you start doing different things and you learn, and then you come to the emerge phase where you decide this is how we're going to deliver what we are going to deliver. This is how it will end, and then comes the converge when you're working towards that specific delivery. And at the bottom there, I think this works. Here it says problem discovery. In the beginning, you might be able to discover some problems at the sprint planning, but it's a local optimum. If you wait a little to decide all the details during the sprint, you start with the sprint goal, add a few things to the sprint backlog, but not everything, and then add as you go. You might come up with something which is much better because you have discovered more about the problem. And this also facilitates low-level priority because you have this goal, so you don't have to say to everybody. This is similar what the guy before me, I don't remember his name. He talked about, he talked about OKRs. So since you have this high-level goal, people can make low-level priorities themselves because they know if I'm going to do this, does that contribute to our big goal or does it not? But if you have all these small balloons, then you're not sure if this little balloon is more important than that little balloon, because you can't say what is the value of this. You don't know. It's just to deliver a lot of small things. So to sum up so far, reductionism doesn't work with uncertainty. Humans are not machines. Development problems are least understood at the start. Objectives leave space for late problem discovery, and objectives are enabling constraints. If you set the objective, if you say this is our guiding star, it will help people because then they know in which direction, because there might be many good directions to move. So altogether, sprint goal support continuous discovery. But what about priority then? Maybe you've seen this one before. Eisenhower box. You know, Dwight Eisenhower, he said something, there are two types of problems, urgent and important. And important are never urgent, and urgent are never important. He said these are two different things. So it's not like important thing, it's important just because you have a deadline. And then someone created this diagram from that, important and urgent. And many people think or act as important and urgent. That's where we want to work. And that was sometimes is called firefighting. And I claim that the more time you spend on firefighting, the more time you will have to spend there in the future. Because you're not doing these things, the crown there, the things that are important but not urgent, that will contribute to our long-term goals. So this is sometimes called jumbled priorities, that you stick to the urgent things and not the important things. And you can easily come there if you just plan all these fractions of work, fractions of value, small things, small tasks. That said, if we complete this, we have a velocity of 36 story points. Let's be a little bit aspirational. Let's complete 39 story points next sprint instead. And this is sometimes called the Sisyphean theme. You know Sisyphus. He was the king of Corinth, and he was punished because he cheated death twice. He escaped in some way from the hall of death, or maybe you know this story better than me. But he was punished, and the punishment was that he had to roll up a big stone for a mountain, up for a hill, and every time when he come to the top, the big stone went down again. So he had to continue with this all the time, and that's what some teams feel when they only get these fractions of value. They never create anything, or they don't understand if they create value. They just measured in how much they produce, how much output, how many stories do you complete. There's also something about blaming others or taking responsibility. In one scientific experiment, they asked people, are you usually more lucky than people in average, or are you more unlucky? And then they divided into two groups. And then they gave them a newspaper and said, can you count how many pictures there are in this newspaper? And those that said they are unlucky, they spent like in average 2 minutes on counting and said it's 43. Those that said they are usually lucky, they have spent a few seconds and said it's 43. So how could they know so fast? It was because in the second page of this newspaper, in big fonts like this, it said, stop reading, there's 43 images in this newspaper. So they thought of it as a goal, something important, something valuable, not that I should count every picture. So if I come to this goal in some other way, it's as good. Sprint goals can also be like an assessment of your roadmaps or your OKRs or your more long-time goals. If the sprint goals are not aligned with the roadmap, if you always have sprint goals that stick to something else, and even more if you have just sprint backlog with small items that are never in line with the roadmaps, maybe you should change your roadmap. So maybe you should change your sprint goals. Another thing about sprint goals is that they create transparency for the stakeholders. If you say to the stakeholders, we will deliver this in like 3 months or 6 months, and then we have created 150 stories, and you can count how many % of these stories we have done. That's not always convincing, because that means that you won't discover anything, that all stories are equal, and you knew in the beginning that those 150 stories will end up to the whole thing, that the value that the stakeholder needs. But if you have these sprint goals and you're transparent with the sprint goals, the stakeholders can understand what are you planning to do right now, what value are you trying to deliver. So to sum up this second part then, firefighting, important and urgent, is self-reinforcing. The more you spend on firefighting, the more you will have to spend there in the future. We are not here for Sisyphean work. We are all responsible for knowing what's valuable. Those people that said that they are usually unlucky, those are the people that usually claim their failures on someone else. They're not interested in what value they want to create. They're only interested in what should I do? What output should I create? The long-term product vision matters, and sharing our objectives manages expectations with the shareholders. So all in all, the sprint goal avoids jumbled priority. Jumbled priority is prioritizing urgent and not important. Sticking to deadlines, delivering small things. So what about teamwork then? There was a guy called Phil Ensor who coined this term, functional silo syndrome. Functional silo syndrome. And it means that people, for example, the purple guys, they say, you're not allowed to touch all things. You in the orange silo, you're not allowed to touch all things. These are what we do. And the woman in the orange silo, she says, I don't know anything about the purple. I don't want to work there. The problem with this might be good if you have someone at the top that has laid the puzzle, that has created this perfect Gantt diagram, and it works in the factory setup. It works in manufacturing, but not when you discover a thing, but not when you design a thing and developing things. And one reason why this doesn't work, in a very simple story, is like this. There are two people here, and there are different rules. Rule A, Alice is rule A, and Bob is rule B. Bob only does blue work, Alice only does green work. The first week here, they each have 100% of work. The second week here, suddenly there's 200% of work for rule B, blue work, but rule A is green, so Alice can't help Bob. The third week, Alice doesn't even have 100%. She has to rule her thumbs for 75% of the time. But Bob has far more, 3 times more work than he can do. And then it changes. but all the time they can't help each other because they have these rigid rules. Because we have this like the sprint backlog where we have decided that you do these balloons and you do that balloons, and that's more important than the goal we have together. And teams not only reduces unevenness, they can also create better decisions. Maybe you read this book, Wisdom of the Crowd. It's like 15 years or something. It's not that new anymore. James Cervecki. It has a lot of stories about how groups solve problems in a special way. One story was about the submarine. The submarine disappeared in the Atlantic Ocean in 1968, I think, and no one knew exactly where it disappeared. So a guy called John Craven, he gathered a team of experts in different fields: a mathematician, a submarine expert, a geological expert, different people, and they each, independent of each other, made the calculations. No one was very clear, very close to where they found the submarine, but in average, it was 200 meters from where the submarine has disappeared. 3,000 meters down. It was almost exactly at the average point of all these. So people have different experience, might complement each other if you have a sprint goal instead of just making fractions and divide it in and assign it to different people. Maybe you've done something similar with planning poker. This is similar to planning poker. Another interesting story is this one, maybe you heard of. It's called inattentional blindness. So a lot of radiologists, radiologists, they are trained people. They're really good at finding nodules, those cancer things. So they looked at plates like this one, and what they didn't know was that in this picture, there's a picture of a gorilla here. It's a picture of a gorilla. It's 48 times bigger than a nodule. And these are experts, so they found most of the nodules, but only 17% of these radiologists saw the gorilla. And with eye scanning, the researchers could see that they really looked at the gorilla, but they didn't notice because they were so trained at looking at nodules. And these 17% that saw the gorilla, no one believed them when they said that they had seen a gorilla. So our brain has evolved to make pattern matching, to say that this is typically this, we're looking for this. But then some of us might see it in a different perspective. And if we divide all the work, if we don't work as a team, then we won't take advantage of that one, of those. Those people that could say like, hey, right now we're going in the wrong direction. We're doing exactly what we planned, but I think that the stakeholders want this instead. That might come from these 17%. And also, if you have a shared goal, a guiding star, it might support distributed decision making. You don't need to talk to each other all the time because you know where you're heading. If you're walking there to Bethlehem and you lose each other, everybody can still walk in the same direction. That's not true with the balloons. If some of the red balloons need to be changed, those that make the blue balloons are not aware of that, because maybe they will have to change things as well. So to summarize the third part here, functional silos creates bottlenecks. You know, these blue and green types of work. Diverse teams give us wisdom of the crowd. Individual brain is optimized for quick pattern matching, which might be a problem because some people, if you're a team, could say, hey, this is not correct in this particular case. Usually you're doing right, but not here. Outliers may help team avoid inattentional blindness, and clear goal gives confidence in distributed decision making. So sprint goal enables teamwork. And then the final thing, efficiency. So my favorite thing here is multitasking. So here's an example. There's a timeline here. You see, week 1, week 2, week 3. And let's say that the sprints are 1 week. And you have 3 things. Either you do first sprint goal A in first sprint, then sprint goal B, and sprint goal C. Or you do a little bit from A, and a little bit from B, then a little bit from C, then a little bit from A again. And you continue like that. I claim that in this way, it will take longer time. Actually, there's a lot of research showing that when you multitask, you are slower, you're making more errors, and you even get more angry when you're multitasking. But not only this, even if you don't trust me on that, even if you say that it doesn't matter if you multitask, we will create it as quick. The problem here is that here you have created value already after 1 week. Here, the first delivery is here in the middle of 4th week. And in average, here, you will be done after 1.5 week. Here, you will be done after 4.5 week. And the last delivery is at after 4 week, and here is after 3 weeks. Yeah, and this, capacity, when you say that we knew we can give you the blue balloons, you the red, because we knew exactly what capacity we have. It sometimes makes me feel that here there's 2 pictures about this. The first one is the tortoise trainer. Maybe you've seen the Osman Hamdi Bey's picture of the tortoise trainer. He has all these tools, and he tries to train these lizard animals. And from his perspective, he has done everything. He has done everything that is needed to make them do something. But still, they're walking in another directions. They never do as he want to. Seen this from another view is this: the team that has all these fractions, all these tasks that they should do, all these stakeholders, and you can't tell how much they will complete about this. It's very hard to say that these guys have exactly this capacity, just based on velocity or something. Because it's so many fractions, and you don't know how they depend on each other, and you don't know exactly. Some part might delay everything because that one was much bigger than you thought. Another interesting experiment was this one. Says single goal commitment. So it was a group of people, subjects, that came to a place and they got goals. And some of these people got 1 goal, and some got 6 goals. And the goals were things that they wanted to do, like I want to, or you should make a nice lunch, or you should call an old friend, or read a really good book, or things like that. And then they asked people how committed they were, and that's the green part here. And you see that those that got 6 goals were a little bit more committed than those that got 1 goal. So every day during a week, they came there, and some got 1 goal and some got 6 goals. The second week, they did exactly the same. Some got 1 goal, some got 6 goals. But now, they had to make a plan about how they were going to implement it. So if they said, like, you should read a good book, then that person needed to say, which book should I read? You should make a good lunch. What recipe will I use? You should call an old friend. What friend will I call? And then they asked them about commitment. And now suddenly, those that had 1 goal was very committed because they had 1 goal and they had planned that goal and they were eager to get started. But those that had 6 goals and had planned that and thought about it, you can think of this as a sprint goal and this as a lot of fractions, a lot of small tasks that they have in sprint backlog and a sprint goal. They were not very committed because all these goals were competing. They were interesting. All these 6 goals that they had were interesting, but they were competing in their head. Should I start with that one or that one? And you probably know also about Dan Pink. He wrote a book called Drive about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation, that's like arrow and stick, and it doesn't work long term. It might work short term with this kind of incentives, but you have to pay with interest in the long term. But intrinsic motivation is more like you feel that there's a purpose here. I'm a part of something big. I'm very skilled at this. I can master this that I work with, and there's some kind of autonomy. Someone says, this is the value we want to create, but you can decide how you should do this because you are the expert. And I claim that sprint goal supports two of these three. The autonomy, you set the goal, just like OKRs, and you trust people that they know how to solve it. And that will make them more motivated. And the purpose, that you are part of something bigger. You don't get these small tasks which you don't understand how they will create some value. Instead, you get a big task, and together with others, you should create something. A sprint backlog without a sprint goal doesn't support any of these three. So it might be bad for motivation. And the final story here is something called additive and subtractive solution. So when I was a kid, when you learned how to ride a bike, you got a bike like this one, like the red one, with support wheels, like these. Unfortunately, you learn very quickly how to ride this, but when you remove the support wheels, what happens? You're not a better biker than you were before. Because the thing about riding bike is balance. It's not like sitting on a bike. Nowadays, maybe you've seen, if maybe you're in the younger generation than me, that they have this, what are they called? Balance bikes, yeah. So instead of adding something, they removed something. There are no support wheels, but they also removed the pedals. So they removed something. Usually we think that when we have something really complex, we need to add some constraint on that to make it less complex. But when you add constraints to something complex, it usually gets even more complex. But if you can remove some constraints instead, it might open up that it's more simple, more obvious than you thought, more clear. But there is like a bug in our brain that always wants us to solve problems by adding something, adding some constraints. So in a scientific experiment, people got the construction of Lego, and it wasn't really stable. And then they said, can you make this stable? And 90% added some Lego to make it stable. Only 10% removed something to make it stable. And even when they said you have to pay 10 cents every time you add something, but you earn $1 if you remove something, then it was like 70-30. 70% still added something instead of removing something. And that's something to think about, actually, about the OKRs. When you add OKRs, maybe you should remove something else. What problem are you really solving when you add OKRs? Will OKRs be redundant and you have your requirement model at the same time and you have your roadmap, so what should people stick to? OKRs are great, I think, sometimes, but maybe you should remove something else. So to summarize this fourth part, multitasking team is slower, makes more errors, makes you more angry. Matching capacity with reductionistic plan is pseudoscience. To think up front that we can decide exactly how many story points we will create based on history. But in history we solved other tasks, of course. It's not the same task. That's the problem. So single goal makes us more committed. Autonomy, relatedness, and mastery give intrinsic motivation, and subtractive solution demands focus. And all in all, the sprint goals improves efficiency. And here are some tips and tricks. If you want to do, because people then say, well, that sounds great, but in our case, we can't do sprint goals because we don't understand each other, what we are doing, and we have to deliver these small things, and we have so many stakeholders, and there's so many dependencies. But here are some things to think about sprint goals. Prepare the sprint goal up front, before the sprint planning. Don't decide about it, but prepare it. Have some suggestion, and then you can review it in the sprint planning to say, is this where we want to go, or should we change it to something else? Start the sprint planning with the sprint goal. Don't start with the sprint backlog and then say, how can we make a sprint goal out of this? Because they said in the Scrum guide that we should have a sprint goal. Start with the sprint goal. What is most important that we can create in these 2 weeks or 1 week or something? And then the second thing might be, what can we put in our sprint agenda that contributes to that sprint goal instead of the other way around? It's totally different. Sprint goal is the first topic in every daily Scrum. So start every daily Scrum by saying, do we have the right sprint goal? What can we do today to go towards the sprint goal, everybody? Not talking about each individual task or starting with that. Sprint goal answers the short-term why. It's not about exactly what task we will create. It's more like, why are we spending effort in the sprint? There's no and in sprint goals, so you don't say our sprint goal is to do that and that. Then it's not a goal. You can't go towards 2 guiding stars. Sprint goal may be direction rather than an ideal place. So, it doesn't have to be Bethlehem. It can be the guiding star beyond that, but you know in what direction to go. And the last one, sprint goal is aligned with teams' roadmaps and product goals. That was the last one. Yeah, that was the final slide. And thank you for listening.